So you've decided to take the plunge because you want to become a much better guitar player, but you're just not sure the exact right way to do it. Now, I appreciate that not every guitarist out there wants to be the next Jimi Hendrix, the next Jimmy Page or Slash or Mark Knopfler, insert your guitar idol here. But what are some things that you can do starting today that will help you towards conquering your guitar goals? My name's Carrington. I've been teaching guitar about 17 years. I now run my own one-to-one guitar teaching business in Bath, and in this video I'm going to share with you some real practical advice that you can use to get ahead of most other beginner guitarists over the next 6 to 12 months. And at the end of the video I'm going to share with you my number one practice tip or philosophy, if you like, that just offers students a little bit of perspective while keeping them motivated to carry on. Let's get into it. Precisely what kind of guitar player do you want to be? Do you want to be the next Slash touring with a rock band like Guns N' Roses, or do you just want to strum chords in your bedroom? Both of those goals are admirable, but they're very different goals and they have very different requirements. You also want to know the difference between where you are now and where it is that you're going with your guitar playing. So if you're starting at the very beginning, say A, and you want to go all the way to Z, well, that's quite a long journey, all right? If you've been playing for a while and you've already reached, say, H, and you want to get to Z, well, it's going to be a very different journey, probably a little bit of a shorter one, again with different requirements. So it's worth just trying to plot out some kind of route. And to be very frank with you, a guitar teacher, a good guitar teacher with a reputation is the absolute best way to do that. But short of that, you can look at online courses and online lessons and that kind of thing. And this takes me nicely onto point number 2. Seems obvious, but your guitar practice routine should be based around the kind of player that you want to be, like we just talked about. And the amount of time you spend practicing should be equal to whatever it is that you want to achieve. Let's push this to its extremes. If you decide you want to be a professional musician, you've got tunnel vision and you're going for that goal, fantastic, truly admirable. But you're looking upwards of 3 hours a day's practice to be a professional musician, if not a lot more than that at some points in time. If you want to be a virtuoso, well then you're going to be looking at 8 hours, 9 hours practice a day, 5-6 days a week for, I don't know, 5 years or something like that if you want to be like a virtuoso player. If you just want to strum chords to your favourite songs in your bedroom, then over the next 6 to 12 months you can certainly do that by practicing 30 minutes per day. These are all very different requirements. That's why it's so important to know who you want to be, because that informs your practice routine. Also, it's very important that you're practicing things the correct way. I can't tell you how many things I've practiced wrong, sometimes for an embarrassingly long period of time, even including on gigs, been playing intros to famous songs wrong, and then I've had to go back and undo these later on because I realised. These are all really important things. So whatever it is that you're practicing, bear in mind you're going to be doing this over and over and over. So you want to make sure that you're getting it right. Hint, hint, teacher can help you. Let's say you now know what kind of player you want to be, and you have some inclination as to what your practice routine is going to be, which you should have written down, by the way. The next thing to do is to kind of make this real, and the first step towards making it real is to schedule it in your calendar. There's something about putting something in a calendar, writing it down, which engages a certain part of the brain which now knows, oh, that time is filled with my guitar practice. Inside it might be something like, on a Monday evening after work, I arrive at 6 p.m. home, I'm going to spend 30 minutes practicing before I have my dinner, and then I'm going to have my dinner as a reward for practicing. On Tuesday morning, I've got a little bit of extra time, so I'm going to do my 30 minutes practice then. And you do that throughout your week and find places where you can practice. Now, people will say, oh, I haven't got time, but think about the amount of time you spend scrolling social media or watching things on streaming services, not really being productive. Okay, I understand that that's your relaxation time to some extent, but then you have to question, well, how badly do you want to get better at the guitar? You know, you just have to do a little bit of mental juggling, and I'm sure you can convince yourself that playing the guitar, practicing the guitar, is a better idea. Now, what I'm about to say might sound a little bit harsh, but I bet that most people, or at least according to my YouTube analytics, won't make it to this point in the video. So if you've managed to do that, you're already part of a selection of people that actually is taking this a bit more seriously and actually does want to get better. And then I'll say an even smaller selection of people will actually be willing to write it down, to write this stuff down. Actually put it in your calendar now, schedule in your practice, get a sheet of A4 and write down what your routine is, or type it up, whatever you're going to do. That will put you in the minority, and that is how you're going to get ahead of other guitarists. If there's one thing out of all of these tips which is probably more difficult than the rest, that is definitely staying consistent. I know this from personal experience. It can be very difficult to stay consistent with all the busyness and the ups and downs of life and that sort of thing. I do get it. But one mistake that I see people make sometimes is they'll be practicing 2-3 hours on a Sunday when they've got a big chunk of time, but then doing nothing else all week. And unfortunately, that doesn't take advantage of the way the brain is wired. The brain likes short bursts of information on a daily basis so that it can then have a rest, go to sleep, and then try and reorder and rehash that information the next day and get just that little bit better. Now, this is going to sound a little bit weird, but guitar practice is a form of suffering, right? That sounds weird. But presumably you want to get better at the guitar because it's something that you value, something that isn't easy to do. And things that aren't easy to do, well, they by default will produce a certain amount of discomfort when we try to do them. And practice is no different to that. Your fingers are going to hurt, your wrists and your joints are going to hurt. Things are going to feel awkward, especially in the beginning. And so it's important not to lose sight of the fact that what you're doing isn't an easy thing. And it's better to have the perspective, oh, okay, so I'm going to suffer. I might as well suffer in the right way while I practice. So there's just a little bit of food for thought. But the overarching point is, make sure that you stay consistent. So it's been a couple of months and you've been practicing consistently and you're making some gains, and you can now do some of those chord changes or some of those scales. Maybe there's a couple of songs you've learned that you couldn't play before. Whatever it is, whatever it means to you. First of all, well done if you've got to that point. And second of all, now's the time to start thinking about revamping your practice routine. Go over it again with a fine-tooth comb. Refer back to the kind of player that you want to be, all that stuff that you wrote down, and use it to pick new things, new influences from YouTube. Maybe there's some online courses that you're looking at. Maybe there's a book that you've seen in the shop that you want to buy and try some stuff out. Just pull in those influences from different places, but make sure that you're referring back to the kind of player that you want to be, to what you actually originally set out to do, and use that as a way to revamp your routine and keep things interesting. I said at the start of this video that I was going to share with you my number one practice tip or kind of philosophy for practicing guitar. It's no big revelation, but it's just something that I say to my students that's designed to reinforce the idea that guitar is a long-term endeavour. So I say to them, guitar is about months and years, not days and weeks. Thank you for joining me in this video today. If you want some example practice routines that you can then modify to your heart's content, you can find them over on my Patreon page, along with tabs and backing tracks for all my other videos. Until next time, guitarists, keep on strumming.